acknowledge the youngest graduate today. This young man, Jalaal Hayes, will earn his Ph.D. today at the young age of 22. Dr. Hayes, would you see a fan?
You know, I've always had a dream to change the world. A dream to make an impact in the lives of others that I come in contact with. But you know, who would have thought it would explode into all of this? I made the decision to graduate high school at the age of 15. I'm glad to be a two-time HBCU graduate. Graduated at 18 with 2 degrees. 2015 in December, I graduated from Delaware State University, being the youngest Ph.D. to ever do it in applied chemistry at the age of 22.
Nothing has happened by chance. He always is in the business of serving others.
Dr. Hayes has been a great influencer in my college career.
Dr. Hayes' story impacts young people because they get to see it firsthand.
Continue to be persistent and understand that one day you'll break through.
Just remember, bro, it all started with a dream that exploded into all of this. Welcome, man. We're here with the energy
Equity and Energy podcast, and you just saw him, Dr. Jalaal Hayes. Man, I'm super honored to have you today. Thank you so much for giving us your time, man.
Well, thank you for having me, man. And it's always a pleasure to speak with people like yourself. So let's get into it.
Man, absolutely. So, one thing about the New Orleans community, and what we love the fact that you went to two HBCUs, got two masters and all that stuff. But we really like to know. We start out with what high school you went to, man, and what was it like, being so advanced at that stage of your life.
Absolutely. So I would say I came from North Philadelphia, born in Chicago, raised in Philly, and the high school I went to was High School of Engineering Science in North Philadelphia. It is one of the premier STEAM high schools in the public school system of Philadelphia, school district of Philly, and I went there for about 2 years, and then I transitioned over to a private school that is non-existent anymore. It's called North. It was called Northeast Preparatory High School, but that's how I graduated early at the age of 15. One of the things that high school taught me in advancing myself is even though that we have teachers and mentors to guide you, at the end of the day, you have to learn how to digest the information and as well as figure out how to apply that information at your own pace. And it was just fortunate enough that I was able to do it within 2 years. So I'm a product of the public school system, like everybody else.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
that last part was I was fortunate enough to transition from 13 transition 15 into graduating and then going into college at that
Yeah,
age.
some of it you just accelerated at that point. I was about to say when you say North Philadelphia, I'm like, man, like you. I mean, you started out down here we call it getting it out the mud. You know what I mean?
It was in the trenches. Yeah, it's
in the trenches. There we go. You said you started.
I literally grew up 2 blocks away from where the rapper Meek Mill is from. So a lot of people. So he grew up on 18th. I grew up on 16th. So I tell people like, wow, I'm really from the city. Went to every school, every part of North Philadelphia throughout my child development. It was an exciting time. But I would say I did fell victim into some things when I was younger, but I was fortunate to have parents who are educators to get me out and then on this journey towards accelerating my education. So I'm very thankful for them. If it wasn't for them, it would be no Dr. Ja today.
Man, and real quick, shout out to Meek Mills because I'm a fan, but I'm a fan of one of the songs that most people don't. I don't even know if people listen to, and it's "I Used to Be a Used to."
Yep.
That
Dream
song
Chasers 2. Dream Chasers 2, track 2. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that song hits so different, bro.
I mean, track 3. I'm my fault. It was track 3, Dream Chasers 2 mixtape. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, man, I love his music. So definitely shout out to him. I'm sure. One thing I know about Philly, they definitely kind of watch out for each other. So if he sees this at some point, man, I hope he realized that used to be a used to changed a lot of things for me as well. So what were some of the biggest challenges? I mean, you're in that scholar spot, man. Like you're growing up with with this academic focus, but you're still coming from being a kid. You're 14, 15 years old. It's tough to be a nerd back in the day, man. Like you already. I'm just keeping it real.
I think what a lot of people don't understand with my generation. I'm a millennial. For those who may not know, my generation was the generation where I was born in the 90s and then early 2000s. So during that time, like you said, it was literally tough being a nerd. It wasn't like I wish I could live in this generation now where it was cool. So back then, that's why I said I slipped into some unforeseen circumstances that I didn't want to get into. But it happened. But thankfully, my parents got me out of that, and then that's how I got into this journey. But in a nutshell, man, it was tough. I would say it was tough because I'm a normal kid. I would say that I was a normal kid back then. Went to school. What I found out was my gift at a young age was math. So around 10 years old, I realized I was real good with numbers. And really getting good with numbers, I really start applying and strengthening my math skills. And that was in 5th grade all the way to 8th grade. Now, 8th grade, that's when I really start applying it in ways I shouldn't be applying it in from 8, 9,
Gotcha.
10
Gotcha.
grade. But what I realized
He was a human calculator.
yeah, not only a human calculator, but I was calculating in ways that you ain't supposed to be calculating stuff.
I got you.
Just keep
going.
But in a nutshell, the leveraging the math and really learning at that age was applying it to everyday life. Because I had a class called Everyday Math. So I learned how math was applicable to everything. And I said, in that point, if math is applicable to everything, that's how I dipped into science to see where was the application. And my love with chemistry came into the 10th grade. But like you said, I was a kid. So even though I was good at school, I was finessing at school. So it was to the point where I would do all my work and say, okay, teacher, I've done my work. All right, can I go to the bathroom? I'll leave. I'll be out the school, man. I'll be hanging out there, like just dumb teenager stuff. But the challenge really came in when I went into college, because at that moment when I entered at 15, this was way before I wasn't sure, but this was before the term early entrant came into play. So I was literally like a 15-year-old kid in the dorm with 18-year-olds. So I really had to, but my father and my mother told me, listen, you're on scholarship. If you lose this scholarship, you coming back home. That's when I really shaped up myself and said, I got to get disciplined. But that time at Northeast Preparatory High School, I was able to take those skills that I learned how to get myself disciplined, self-study, learn how to study, and really start applying it that time to really get to keep my scholarship. Because that's literally how I graduated when the way I graduated, because my mindset was I gotta keep the scholarship because I don't want to go back home.
Okay.
That was the biggest thing. I was like, I'm not going back home.
So at 15 years old, you knew that going back home was not an option.
It was not an option for me. Now, it seemed like my mother always told me, mothers, they said, well, my baby, you can always come back. But my father said, I'm coming back if this don't work out. So I'm like, I got to make sure it works out. I have to. There was no option for me. So I made it work. I was like, I got to study. I got to stay focused. I can have fun, but I got to balance the fun with the schoolwork. And then over time, it started getting a little unbalanced because the work started taking over versus the fun.
So I feel like I definitely need to jump in this little space right here, man. Because that's why I said that the more I started looking at your stuff, the more I was like, we got to do another one of these. As a STEM student already, choosing science, technology, engineering, and math, you're putting yourself in a certain space. So I know those kids sometimes they may have a challenge as far as interacting with kids who are not necessarily doing that, right? Like, I mean, sometimes people, if you're not, I was a football player, right? I was good and I was a good student, but just so happened I could play football. That kept everything else covered. Right?
Yeah, I was in the dorm football player, so I understand.
Everything covered. How do we those kids, those challenges that they face, and you're making that transition between 15 and 18 of just filling out a place because of intelligence, bro. Like one thing we've done a good job of probably is demonizing intelligence.
Yeah,
you talk funny, I'm like, come on, bro. You mean I talk funny?
I would say this is the benefit of going to an HBCU twice. Okay. So when I got to school, even though I was smart, I sound just like how I'm talking now. Yeah. So I got away with a lot of things because I was smart on the books, but I didn't really talk down to people, right? Or because I could speak the same vernacular or the same tone and energy. As a matter of fact, people drew to me because of that. Because I was like, I thought I was going to draw in the crowd of intellectuals, science people. Really, I drew it the opposite because it was, which was interesting. But as I look back, I realized that the gift of teaching that I was fortunate to have, because of my tone and the way I speak when I'm talking about intellectual things, it makes people feel comfortable. They don't feel as if I'm trying to talk above them. I'm actually talking with them. And if they don't know, I make it comfortable to say, yo, man, I don't know what the heck you talking about. So it's like, okay, well, let me try to simplify the language even more. And I took the patience to do that. So it actually drew in more people than repelled them.
Yeah. And maybe now, just keeping it real, you sound a little bit like Jadakiss. Ever since I've heard your voice, I've been like, what does sound like?
Well,
I hung
around a hall of people. Well, so I went to school. All my friends are from New York. So if I get you sound like a little New Yorkish, it's because for 15 years, all my friends from New York, all 5 boroughs, particularly special by Harlem. That's where the first people. So that's why I probably say a little.
Yeah, man. And so we have a unique, dialect down here in New Orleans. Like I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana, which is up the road. But when you born and raised, when you native to New Orleans, you're gonna have your own dialect. You're gonna have your own way of it's just like the Philly accent. But being able to be your authentic self, and that was something I think we just kind of stumbled up on. I think that's a big deal, man. Being able to be your authentic self as you explain really hard topics, and I think that's what I'm really. Tell me a little bit about that. Like when you say you was drawing people to you by just being yourself.
Well, I was drawing people to me because one, I walk in the world as a student of life. Even though I'm an expert at something, I'm a student of life. So even though I might be smart in terms of math and science, I really want to learn your way of life. Like that's how I always approach people. Like, this is interesting. Tell me more. And I'm not trying to be fake about it. I'm actually want to learn how you grew up and all of this stuff. So there's a trade-off happening in terms of conversation. So I'm teaching you intellect, but you teaching me about life, because you got to think about it. I'm 15 years old in college. You 18, 19, 20, 21. Right. And you grew up in the inner city. I grew up in the inner city, but I was fortunate enough to escape that reality early, but you dealt with it 3 years more than I had. So there's a conversation that's had in terms of information exchange and cultural exchange. So I'm teaching them in terms of the STEM culture, in terms of information, but I'm learning more about life culture at the same time. So as I'm getting older, when I'm talking with people, I understand people, and up to this day, I always try to figure out, okay, I'm talking with this person, but I really want to understand the wholeness of this individual that I'm talking to. Yeah. Because if I don't, then I can't be comfortable of my authentic self on how to interact with you. Yeah. And that's a flaw that I have. If I don't have the authenticity of that, I may or may not deal with you. Yeah. And that's something that I'm working on. And I can admit to say I'm working on that. So that's why that's where my authenticity comes in. And it's in the concept of what Plato Apology said. I know that I don't know. So the more that I know that I don't know, that's when I become more knowledgeable, because I constantly seek knowledge at the end of the day.
So that sounds like the having the ability to lean into curiosity versus leaning on your ego and all the academic accomplishments that you had. Like you're still curious about people.
Exactly. Now I do ego if people would get match ego. I do that. Okay. But I try not to.
I got you.
Like it's not necessary for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather just let's have a real, genuine connection and conversation. And if you don't want to have that, cool. I'll holler at you. I could flex on accomplishments all day. That's why I have it. But that's not the premise of why I want to get to know you.
Man, who was your mentors while you was going through this process?
I would say one of the mentors I had was, of course, a guy from the book who spearheaded my whole journey spiritually, a guy by the name of Dr. Jesse Ernest Wilkins Jr. Young black guy, born November 23rd, 1923, 32. For those historians, please don't butcher me. But the spirit of his story, he was called the Negro Genius, and that he was born in Chicago like I had. Well, was born in Chicago, but he graduated high school at 13. So he graduated high school at 13, but then he got his Ph.D. by 19 at the University of Chicago. So I was reading his journey at 13, and I said, "Wow, I wish I can do that." 2 years later, I was fortunate enough to do that. The
Okay.
circumstances was probably different, but I was fortunate enough to make that leap and get into college at 15. So that's one mentor. And the next mentor was a guy from Texas who went to Morgan State University, and he mentored my father, and he took on mentoring me because he loved science and he specifically loved chemistry. And I
Okay.
told him I was going to be a chemistry major when I got into Lincoln University, and then I stuck to that all the way throughout. So for those 7, 8, well, but probably from birth, he was watching me, but actively mentoring me from 15 to about 25.
Mhm.
That was that particular person. And then of course, my parents. So my father mentored me and then guided me until his death. And then my mother was there for being a nurturer. So those like the 4 key people. And then also as I stated before, my mentor, or my advisor in PhD program, he mentored me for 6 years.
Okay.
So 4 years when I was in school, then the last 2.
And so, I mean, you're the youngest. So at the time, I think it's 2015, the youngest PhD candidate in chemistry in America, and also at Delaware State.
Yes.
So how do we bridge? How do we get into the hydrogen space?
So the hydrogen space, that's a funny story. Real funny story. So when I went to college, I wanted to do like every person wanted to do when they got into STEM. Not every person now, but back then it was I wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be a lawyer. So I wanted to be a medical doctor, and I really wanted to specialize in pediatrics or brain being a neurosurgeon.
Mm-hmm.
When I shadowed my doctor, I remember this. I shadowed my doctor in May 2010 as a pediatric. He's a pediatrician.
Mm-hmm.
I shadowed him for a week, and after that, I said, "I'm not sure I want to do this because of I saw the true interaction of a doctor in that real time." And although the pediatrics they more friendlier, I saw when I broke my foot
Mm-hmm.
the other side of the other doctors, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
nah, this is nothing. This is not something I want to do. And also, just to be honest, I was taking the MCAT, and I couldn't make the grade. I had
Yeah.
I think the highest is a 36 at the time. I
Mm-hmm.
was doing 20, 25, 18. I just couldn't hit it. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, nah, I just don't want to. Let me switch off to being switch off to something different. And my mentor introduced me to hydrogen. He said, "Hey, have you heard? How do you like hydrogen as an element?" I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Well, it's the first element on periodic table. I like number 1. So I
Mm-hmm.
like hydrogen." And he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, there's this guy at Delaware State. He got a Center for Hydrogen Storage lab, and if you're very interested, I would like you to go meet him." And this was in November 2010. I met the guy in December 14, 2010. We drove down. It was snowing outside. My father and I drove down. We met my advisor, Dr. Andrew James Gowdy, and he showed me all the labs, the labs that he built. And what people do not know, Delaware State was probably the only HBCU that had this particular research because it wasn't popular. But this guy was the expert. So he brought it to Delaware State University. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna get a master's and I'm gonna get ready for med school. I'm gonna do like a post-bac, but I'm gonna get a master's program and I'm gonna go to med school.
Mm-hmm.
After the tour he showed me at Delaware State University, he gave me this book. He said, "I think you," and it said a PhD. Is it a PhD in applied chemistry? I said, "I think you gave me the wrong." But he said, "No, I think you should explore that." I was like, "I think I'm gonna get a master's." I said, "No, I think you should explore that." So it was him that saw it in me before I even saw it in myself. And then
Right. So you wanted the master's. He's like, "No, you need to be in this PhD program."
yep.
Okay.
And then after it was funny after I got in. Fortunately, I got in the PhD program, and I visited him. I said, "Why you gave me the book?" He said, "Well, based on your record, I could fast track you because based on how you move, I know I can fast track you, but you're gonna be the student that I pour all my knowledge in." I
Okay.
got nervous. I'm 18. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. So I say all that to say that was the guy that actually convinced me to get into hydrogen. I liked it as an element, but actually exploring the characteristics, the science behind it, what it can do, what they was trying to do in
Yeah.
terms of the energy back with the 2000 and the targets were 2015 back then. These are
Yeah.
the same but similar targets we still talking about today. So it's so because of that, that's when I really started getting into hydrogen because I saw this is something that's going to happen in
Okay.
the world. Like it's going to
Mhm.
happen because we have targets. And that's why, and also it aligned with my degree, which was applied chemistry, chemistry that's going to apply to the world. Because my whole rule of thought in research, I do not want to work on something that's not going to make an impact in the world. No offense to people who do, but I have to work on something because when I talk back home, when they say, "John, what you working on?"
Mhm.
I need to explain it to them in ways that it's going to change their life.
Right. Right.
That's me. That's
Yeah.
that's how I operate in terms of the STEM research field. So, and hydrogen was the avenue for me.
That's interesting, man. I could not explain good. I mean, you could explain good grades, but it was always, oh, that's nice. Like, you know, when I was undergrad, it was, oh, that's nice. You could explain good football games. Oh, that's nice. But at the end of the day, especially dad, like you just want to know, like, what are you doing to move forward? Like, you know, like what are you what are you pushing forward? Yeah, boy ain't gonna always be here. You got to figure it out.
Yep.
You know, and I get it, man. I'm
Yep.
like, I love it. It's those conversations sound more polished now, but it was crazy then. So tell me a little bit about. So you went the journey of you moved past, got your PhD, got into the hydrogen space, and now I'm and this is I'm gonna hit you with this, but I didn't put this in your notes, but I'm gonna hit you with this because this is another thing I stumbled across. I was kind of impressed with. You went straight back and started working with students in high school.
Yep. So
Oh,
I'm gonna tell you that story. So what happened when I was on the road to graduating, one of the things I saw was I wasn't a TA
okay.
in school. I was an RA. I was a research assistant. So
Mhm.
so research was great. You know, they got papers. Fortunate enough, got a patent. We it's all I got four. Yeah, I got four papers. Then I got a patent, and then I have this going on. Got that going on. It looked great as a researcher, but
Yeah.
I've learned is at the time, um, just be honest, I couldn't get a job in it because a lot of people will focus on batteries. It was no hydrogen. Like what you see there was hydrogen. It was
Yeah.
no hydrogen. It was battery development,
Okay.
battery production, cells.
Mhm.
So I was trying to align it, but it wasn't aligning in the research field. But I also stated I lean back, and it's funny how God works. The interesting thing is I was running from teaching this whole time, but I need to really understand now looking back, I'm glad I ran to it when I stopped running from it.
Okay.
When I couldn't do the research, I reflected and I talked to my dad. I was like, Dad, I can't get no postdoc. I can't get anything. And I talked to my mentor. He said, well, baby, you overqualified. I
Mhm.
said, what do you mean I'm overqualified? I need a job.
Mhm.
At the time, he said, well, I think you need to explore teaching, make yourself more well-rounded.
Mhm.
And I was nervous because I was talking high level.
Yeah.
High level language in terms of science. I was using all the jargons, all the acronyms. So I was nervous. I said, I don't know if I want to teach because I don't know how to teach. I've been
Mhm.
taught to just do research. So my father told me, I think you need to teach. So at the two confirmations from two different people that didn't talk to each other, I
Mhm.
believe, I said, all right, I gotta go explore teaching. And that's how I got into the high school. And when I got into the high school, almost I was crying every day, not because I couldn't do the work. It was wow, they remind me of how I was when I was 13, 14, 15 in terms of being in a public school. And I fell in love with it with the kids and say, you know what? This is where I need to be at this moment. And that's why I took a pause on all of the research stuff, because I said I really want to master this teaching, because I'm a people person, and the world and the two worlds are different. In that the research world, a lot of individuals work in silos. It's like every man for themselves. Whereas in education, it was a culture shock to me, because it's, oh, I'll help you. Oh, you need this? Let me help. And I wasn't used to that. I'm used to doing everything myself. But I've learned in the world, 9 times out of 10, that's how it operates. If you ask for help, people will actually help you. It's not figure it out on your own. So dipping into the world of education, I fell in love with it in 2015. I fell in love with the kids. The kids kept me, and I still say today, kids keep me in education. And at the time, I realized I had to go back, because it reminded me and it grounded me where I come from, and it kept me humble and talking and being my authentic self. Because if I would have went the other way, we probably would be having this conversation right now.
Yeah. It gets out of hand real quick. Like, your choice to go back and teach the kids was really your choice to go back and work on your messaging as a whole.
Exactly.
You know, if I can explain it to 15, 16-year-olds, I can definitely explain it to adults.
Exactly. And that's literally, and I tell people all the time, that what made me a better CEO. Not the science, it was the education side. Because I'm telling you, man, the kids was chewing me up when I was talking.
Yeah.
But when I started getting the messaging right and start explaining it and start increasing my economy of language, as I call it, from high level to a level that they understand and we scaffold it and build it back up. When I start mastering that from 2015 to now, I said, oh, this would make me a better CEO. This would make me a better leader. It has nothing to do with the science. Don't get me wrong. I can talk to science all day, but the masses want to know, can you take it from here to here, not make me feel I'm out of place, and make me feel understanding. And also with teaching, education taught me was patience. So education made me a better leader all around versus the science. The science is cool, but the science make you arrogant. But the education makes you well-rounded and level-headed.
Yeah. Well, the thing, you gotta, the education it humbles you, because if the kids don't get it, you haven't done a good job.
You don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what you're talking about. And now, and you might have been phenomenal, but your goal is to impact the kid, man. Like when the goal is to impact the student, then you have to humble yourself and say, like what is it that I'm going to have to do? It's not the information; it's 100% the delivery.
Is always the method of delivery.
Man.
And that's, I can have a conversation all day, but that's what also helped me out in higher ed now. Okay. It's the method of delivery. It has like everybody has the same information, but the method of delivery, the way you communicate the information, is what transforms the lives and the mindset of young people and people that you're trying to engage and lead. So that's something that, like you stated, is always the method of delivery. Always.
So man, so now let's get to we're working and we're teaching, we're learning how to really tailor this method so our community gets it, and then you go into the clean energy space.
Yes.
So tell me how did that evolve to that, from teaching to actually getting into the entrepreneur side?
Timing.
Okay.
Timing. So I always been an entrepreneur. I have another company, which that's where the documentary that y'all showed earlier, that's from the other company, the education company. So I've always been an entrepreneur, but the clean energy company, it was timing, because when I saw what was happening is, okay, policy wise, I'm looking at the eastern part of the world. Everybody is getting around hydrogen or this clean energy. You got to remember, America was out of the Paris Agreement due to the president, right? But everybody else was advancing and moving forward. And I always looked at the COPs. I forgot what their conference stands for, but the CO, I can't remember what it stands for. But it's always on the eastern part of the world. But I was looking at, okay, they transition. Oh, hydrogen popped up on the radar on the eastern part of the world, England, Japan, that part of the world.
Germany is doing that too, right?
Germany, Netherlands, everybody that, and I know this because of one, I traveled over there doing when I was doing the research, but also just keeping an eye out on the globalization of the energy demand. And I'm seeing the changes. And I'm saying, okay, if this president switches, we're gonna be on that same wave too, but we're gonna be at least 5 to 6 years behind. So we have to jump this thing now. At first, I just wanted to license the technology. How outrageous was the license technology? I got an attorney and said, listen, I just want to license the technology because I want my HBCU to start learning about the business side of research and really how to monetize the IP portfolio that they have and not just have it sitting there on a piece of paper. So we went through that whole process of just saying, hey, we want a license. And they was like, huh, it's a sharp learning curve. They had to learn for how to license, what is intellectual property. I know we got it, but what do you actually do with it? So that was a whole learning process. So by the time I went through an I-Corp class. So I went through an I-Corp class. And after that, I said, you know what? Let me just create a company. So I got to teach through action because that's where the education comes in. I can say it, but it's not registering. So now I got to teach it through action. I got to do the kinesthetic learning. So that's when I said, let's create a company. They said, what's it going to be called? I said, well, my first company was Elite Universal Network. I'm just going to call it Elite Energy. Like, just get it rolling. So the LLC paperwork said, hey, license it to us. Here's the license agreement. That's literally what the company was for. It was just going to be a instrument where you license the technology to us, and then we was going to take it into the market. Well, after doing so many accelerators, I said, you know what? Let me just turn this into a business because it looks more impactful as I'm learning. This is going to be more impactful than just licensing a product. And on top of that, based on the business model of licensing, there's a lot of people that can eat off, get paid higher. It's a lot to this thing now because when I'm in my education business is okay, B2B, B2C. You just sell to people products, you get a check. Cool. Energy, I started learning, this is political, this is economic. This is bigger than just a hustle. This is a actual business. So let me challenge myself to actually build a business that's going to hopefully grow and make the impact that I was talking about 10 years prior. So that's where the whole Elite Energy came into play. It literally fell into my lap because the whole concept was I was just trying to license the technology. But after going through so many classes and then meeting with Ivy Leagues and start really understanding what's happening in this particular hydrogen field, that it's a subject that was here and then it like came back and everybody threw a party, said, hey, hydrogen bet. Snap, came back with gifts. That's the money. Let's get into it. But I don't know what the gift is. What are we going to use the gift for? So that's why, okay, this is where the advantage that I may have, competitive advantage I may have in this business. So let's grow it and try to help people. Yeah.
Now it's what color is it? What color is the gift? Because it's a whole rainbow of it's action going on out there.
It's so much going on there. It's like, where's all this coming from? It evolved because of what's been happening over other parts of the world. So because of that, I said, this is a global thing. This is not a hustle, get your own turf in America thing. This is a global thing. So therefore, this challenging me and my team to think on a different level. And as I said before, I'm a student of life. So now if I'm learning something, that's what got me. I'm learning. How much more can I learn? And it can be reflecting on how this business grows. The more I learn, the more this business is going to constantly grow.
So you basically build out Delaware State tech transfer office?
Low key, yes. low key. No. I'm gonna say, okay. Let me say this. I would say with Delaware State University, we were the first
technology to be patented
Yes.
at the university. So throughout that whole journey of what I was building the business and all of that, I didn't realize that I was literally growing the ecosystem. Just what that was the other thing. I was like, we made history. Like, and that's where somebody in my camp was telling me, like, did you realize you made history while you was making history? And I said, me. I said, the youngest PhD is nice, but you were the first patent that was filed at the university in 2013. There was no patent before that because I filed it before the policies were written in 2016. So I get to play a different, so that's what I learned. I said, no, they said, is it possible? You had to file a 6. I said, no, I filed mine at 13. We filed ours in 13 with my team. And then we spoke to the transfer office because we worked with somebody else.
Yeah.
And they said, no, y'all were the first ones ever. I said, wow. So now that gives us an advantage saying, listen, now we're going to be the first to license.
Yeah.
Now we the first to license. We the first to have a spinoff. And that's why you probably see some articles. Elite Energy was the first HBCU spinoff to compete in the Ivy Leagues. We competed at Princeton University's Empowerment Conference. So now we make a history while we growing this thing out, all because, and then we propose that, hey, let's get into the road to R1, because that's where all our HBCUs at right now. Like Howard, of course, first place, 2025, but let's help out to show that this is what it looks like on the road to R1 and keeping it sustainable.
Yeah. So back in the day, you're basically, and I like to always kind of get those analogies so that maybe people, so back you're like Denzel Washington was with the great debaters, right? You're taking a team from HBCU and going to compete, going to position yourself in that Ivy League space to compete, just like, I mean, very similar to what they did with the great debaters in the debate landscape.
It did, but it wasn't the goal. It just literally, that's how it literally, the journey became that. And it was like, wow, if we're in this realm, what can we do now? And that's where my co-founder and I was like, it's no limit at this point. We gotta, it's a company now. We gotta really make this thing happen, but we gotta come back and tell our people, yo, we got something that we got a vehicle that we're trying to fuel to try to help a lot of people understand what is this thing called hydrogen, because that's the thing that we noticed, the education, which I go back to. That's why I'm glad I was in education. Let's go to what is hydrogen, because we doing all this high level stuff. We're doing a business. It's great. But the problem is when you try to communicate this work with people, they ask it, that's great, but what is hydrogen? What is it? Like, I hear it, but what is it? And that's what we came to realize, that this is why we need to stay. And that's when we really solidified it as an entity or a company to keep moving this thing forward, because we got to educate, then innovate, and then we can escalate.
So let's talk about that, man. What is hydrogen, and then how do you work with it?
Sure. So hydrogen is the first element on the periodic table. It's the letter H. You see on the periodic table is the lightest element and the most abundant element in the universe. That's the chemical term. So it has various applications. There are the main application that focus on is, I'm going to focus on two applications. One application we see that we may not know, that 55% of the world uses hydrogen for agriculture.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that. That's how we create green ammonia to do the agriculture.
Okay, then. So just help us get what color is this particular ammonia? Is this green hydrogen too? No,
it's not green. This is just hydrogen. This is gray. So everybody, it's gray hydrogen. So that's why I was saying gray. Hydrogen been around. It just hasn't been clean. So let's get into the color. So we all had gray because we all work with fossil fuels. We all deal with oil all around the world.
Okay.
So the gray hydrogen comes from this whole process that you take fossil fuels and you produce hydrogen, but then you got all these carbon dioxide, monoxide producing, you ain't at that time, you didn't really care about it. You just, okay, great. Let me capture the hydrogen, keep it pushing, right? So that's the production. So all these colors is based on production, how you produce the hydrogen. So you have gray. The transformation is gray, blue, green. Now you hear all the other colors. I'm gonna get to those later because they came much later through thorough investigations. But let's focus on the three for the sake of time. So you have gray. Then you have blue. Blue is what probably Louisiana may explore. The goal is always green, but blue is like the happy medium. That's the hydrogen produced using natural gas.
Okay.
So, because natural gas is a little bit more cleaner than fossil fuels, it's more abundant in the United States than fossil fuels, because fossil fuels is declining. Natural gas is where our gold mine is at. So, okay, we could do a blue hydrogen because we already have the pipelines, we already have it set up, the infrastructure is there.
Yes.
Right. So it's easier to transition now, but the goal is green. What's green? That's the clean, clean hydrogen. That's the one that's produced from the renewable or the alternative, as you hear, alternative energies. So that's that's your solar, that's your wind, that's your maybe your hydropower. But the two main ones that you probably hear that's already matured in the market is the solar panels and the wind turbines. Which basically is you could do this at home, ladies and gentlemen. You could take a solar panel, you put some wires on it, you connect it to a nail, you put in a jar of water, you put the solar panel next to the sun, you see the nail start boiling up. One's going to boil faster than the other. The one that boils fast, who's electrifying fast, that's the hydrogen. Why is electrifying fast? Because it's the lightest. The other side is a little more slow bubbles. That's the oxygen. That process is called electrolysis. Fancy word for water splitting. Splitting water. You got H2O. You splitting it into O and the H. That's they do for a solar panel, but you could do the same thing as for a wind turbine at the same time. That's the goal, to get to the green, because green and clean. Blue is like the middle ground, but we always had gray.
Okay.
But we're trying to get from gray to green. Now, because of the energy demand, that's why you have all these other colors. You got the pink. All of a sudden, what is the pink? Oh, we're going to put these nuclear reactors and we're going to try to look at the pink. We're going to try to create hydrogen from these nuclear reactors. We're going to hope it's not kill nobody. We're going to try to do it clean, but it's going to be, we're going to label it can't be green, but you know, make it pink. We have this thing called orange. What is orange? Oh, that's from biomass. So you take in waste to hydrogen. Remember Back to the Future when the scientists say, yo, I gotta get some fuel. He went in the trash and it generated fuel. It was generating hydrogen fuel to take them back from 1985 to 2015. That scene, that's how I describe the orange hydrogen. So
wow, man, they probably trying to tell us something in '84.
I tell you a whole thing on what they've been telling us the future the whole time.
Okay.
The thing is, who's going to be brave enough to actually execute on it?
Okay.
But the science and the STEM, we got to understand it in the technical part to make that dream that we see on the film a reality in the world.
So, and because we are world's largest producer of natural gas. Like Louisiana itself, I think we produce 61%. And I gotta make sure, I'm gonna go ahead and clear this up too. I think it's 61% of the world's natural gas. Not the world, definitely the America.
Okay.
Tell me like, so, and this will kind of help bring it home for us. We're a big port city. We have ports all around us. And you were kind of trying to tell me a little bit about how your company, so taking the hydrogen and evolving that into how you're working with maritime.
Yes. So the thing that our company is exploring on the technology side, because we have tech and talent. That's how our company is designed. Talent, workforce development, technology, we're going to get into it. So the technology side, what we focus on, we realize our technology is, if we're getting into the market right now, like you said, we got some pack up ready to go. Right now, is for the maritime or shore power. Why? Because we don't have to worry about weight to mass ratio. And also with our technology, we use it as we always tell, or when we pitch it, it's a backup power. So we're a backup power to ships and maritime right now because of where we at right now with the technology. Boom. So that's why I said we would maritime, because we don't have to worry about weight. Because we use a metal hydride system, metal over time, as you stack it up, it gets heavy. Okay. So, but you could put that on a ship because of the weight of the ship. They don't really focus on that in that market. But what the main thing that we focused on is what our technology also has as a benefit is that we know how to lower emissions. Think about a cruise line. One of the problems they said with a cruise line is that when they park at a port, the ship just keep running.
Yeah.
And the smoke goes in the atmosphere. But that pollutes anybody that lives near the port.
Okay.
Our technology, if you're not doing it on the energy side, we could do it on the emissions control side, which means we could capture that emission and it will lock in through our throughout how the metal is designed within the technology. And we tested that. So that's why I said we killing two birds with one stone in the maritime industry. That's why we focused on shore power and maritime. Because okay, you don't want, we worry about the energy thing later, but the biggest pain point is that emissions as you're sitting at the dock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's something that we know we can guarantee we can get that lowered with our technology. On top of course, power. But the main thing is the emissions control.
Wow. Okay, so with and being, I mean, obviously all founders have challenges, but when you start talking about being in that energy space, and like you said, it's tied to a lot of things. It can be political. It can be. It's definitely I say a money game. I mean that that.
Yeah.
Again, our fossil fuel people are the ones who hold a lot of the money, but I also believe they're also the ones who want to participate to a certain degree in this transition as well. What are some of the challenges that you ran into when you were out there trying to like when you were out there trying to go, hey man, this is my research, this is what I'm doing, this is the direction that we think we're going to go in. Like, what are some of the things you ran into?
As one of the things, the biggest challenge, of course, the founders is always going to be funding, but the biggest challenge is identifying the pain point on what they really care about.
Okay.
I think the reason why the clean energy transition is tough is because it's like, okay, what's the money in it? It's really that simple in their mind. Okay, what is the rate of return? Because when they had the conversations, they started talking about the finance. Like, okay, this is great. We want to do it, but we can't wait 10, 15, 20 years on our money.
Mm-hmm.
So if we really going to invest in something, we got to think about how we can solve a problem that we get a return on, at least in 5 years. I don't know about 10 or 15. And I said, and essentially, I don't blame fossil fuel companies. It's based on policies, right? So policies and okay, are we going to make allowance to, let's fund you the whole way. Let's fund this company or big companies, small companies, particularly big companies, the fossil fuel companies. Let's fund you the whole way while you're trying to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing they're looking for. Like, I don't mind doing it, but who's going to pay me to do it or sustain it while I'm getting my rate of return back?
Yeah.
And that's the fear. The fear is, where's the rate of return? Because I need to show shareholders that I can make the money back. I don't want to put all my eggs over here and we wait in 10 years to get a rate of return. Why? Because of infrastructure. See, if we had a little bit of infrastructure, there'd be no problem, right? So like it was like that with solar at one point. One point, solar people, but as the infrastructure grows, it's no problem.
Yeah,
I can invest because I'm seeing a rate of return over here, seeing a rate of return over here. Okay, I know the metrics.
Yeah,
it's like you have to take the courage to invest in the unknown, and that's the challenge. What specifically with my industry, hydrogen, we don't know what is it going to be? We don't know where the economy going to start.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it going to start in maritime? Is it going to start in the grid? Like, where is it going to start? And I had to really truly understand that from just studying. Let's go back to oil.
Yeah.
Right. So oil, what was oil used for at one point? This was before cars. What was oil used for? Heating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we got a market. Okay. Boom. Then it transitioned to something else. And then Henry Ford did the car. Oh, okay. Now so once I understood that, it's like, okay, which market is going to be the first mover advantage in this particular lane we call hydrogen? Because right now, a lot of things is let's throw it at the wall, see if it sticks. That's literally the game right there. It's the wild, wild west. Let's throw something, see if it sticks. If it sticks, all right, everybody gonna do it to get their money. Then let's try some other things.
And your concept is they're going to understand me wanting to decrease emissions before they understand the full potential of hydrogen.
Exactly. I learned this concept from the CEO of the Gathering Spot. He said this: you got to introduce the horse. You can't introduce the zebra sometimes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Meaning that you got to introduce what they want to see.
Yeah.
Versus what it actually really is. You can't show all the stripes and the layers. So I took that same concept from him and said, you know what? I asked the question, what do you need? What's the problem? Like, forget what I got. What's the issue? And the issue was, we need to lower our emissions. So that's why I looked at the technology and said, we could do that. Now we have a conversation.
Right.
I said, okay, this is where it's at. Same thing for how we started our workforce development. The workforce development was, what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
We can't get talent. What you mean you can't get talent? They don't know what this is. Ding! Workforce development. It's and you already know it's like going in sales mode. Instead of telling people what you got, you ask them what they need, or you know what they need before they even tell you. And from that point, you start understanding, can my technology fit? Like, instead of doing a product market fit, if there's no market, you do a problem product fit. Because there's no market. It's really it's a market, but there's no market. So you start looking at, okay, can my product or my technology fit that particular problem? And if it can fit the problem, we could start from there and then grow into what I truly want to desire to do.
And I think that a lot of our founders are learning it. Like, even when they pitch, technology may be for one thing, but a lot of times people can go back and see problems that it solves for them, and it may not necessarily look like the way they're pitching it, the way they're bringing it out.
Exactly.
Definitely not, man.
Exactly.
So, what's your dream? What are your hopes and dreams in regards to Evans Innovations? Like, what do you see you guys in the hydrogen space? Is it the batteries? Where do you see you guys moving in that space?
Right. I would say right now, because it may change. I would say right now, we just want to be a piece of the solution right now. So because of our technology, we a storage company. I mean, we in storage, hydrogen storage.
Mm-hmm.
We see ourselves being the bridge between the producers and the end users.
Okay.
That's literally it. Like right now. Over time, it may change. The answer may change, but right now, we just want to be the storage of hydrogen. So as they develop in this infrastructure, something goes out, power outage, it clicks on to our technology. So we can continue to build out this infrastructure across the United States. That's literally what we want to do. It's not that deep. It's literally, and that's why we constantly teach and say, listen, storage is essential to the whole value chain, because as you building out and you're producing, that seasonal, we talking about green, right?
Right.
We're going to have some power outages because we're switching out, we balancing out grids. Mm-hmm. Let us just be the backup power the backup storage to help everything flow. So by the time things up and running, you may not need us no more, or you may do. I don't know. But for right now, as we coming into this emerging economy, we just want to show y'all that we want to be the bridge between the producers and the end users. Because that's what that's what America's built off of. Midstream. Midstream to low stream. This upstream we doing, the producers, this is a new thing for us. That's why green is so hard. We're not used to building out infrastructure for developing things like factories and things like that. We did in the 20s, we did in the past, but we got away with that. And it's like we trying to reinvent that. But we missing at least 2 to 3 generations that don't know how to get to that, right? So if we get into that, let's just be the bridge for making all this infrastructure happen.
I think it's funny, man. We sit in so many meetings where I guess it's starting. It always was soaking in, but it's one of those things where when you go, we're not skilled at building the infrastructure like we were in the 20s, right? Like we knew there's a reason for it and what we were trying to get to. So we built a talent pool to put that in place. Now what we have, the reason why Louisiana is in such a good spot is what we're really piggyback off of what we have with the fossil fuels and how our pipelines are already laid out while we're probably already dealing with gray hydrogen anyway, because of how much we produce. I mean, I think it's a double A. We're being number 4, the energy producer is great, but we're also like number 6 in regards to our carbon footprint for a state our size, right? So because we're creating energy creates other stuff.
Exactly.
So and this was what such a great time to be here, because those are the problems that we're solving too. Like how do we create that balance between that good stuff that we need from the fuel space, but being able to clean up some of the tough things we got. So we got a lot of decarbonization going on as well right now, in this space. Again, man, like I tell you, like we're gonna have to, like it's about 3 other topics I want to go into. We're gonna have to do this again, but we do a lot of work with some STEM students, man. I have been blessed to work with a couple different programs we have here. I think one of the number one things that I have learned working with the students, man, is that they are more focused and more locked in on your message to them than you think they are. Like,
wow,
this is not the group of kids that are not listening.
Wow. Okay.
I'm putting a challenge out there to Generation X, because I always I know you told me it was a millennial earlier. It's like Generation X, this is not about a group of people that's not listening. This is about you getting real comfortable with the message that you're giving. And that's what's needed, I think, from us in this space right now, an understanding of the message, because that toughness, that tenacity, all that stuff is super, super important. All the stuff that we grew up with. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like when you said, like, 2000, bullying was on the table, dog. 2000?
Yeah.
That can come off the table in 2010. Like, 2000, you get bullied. It's just more like, hey, man, we got this kid that I'm gonna have to grow up with, and we got to figure it out. We might tussle, but we're gonna figure it out. So tell me what you would give those kids now who are growing up, they're in that STEM space, they're wondering, like, what some of the things they can get into, and even hydrogen. Like, how would they parlay that STEM piece? What would be your advice for parlaying that STEM into something that can be as fulfilling as you do as a teacher, or that can be as visionary as you do with events innovations?
I'm glad you worded like that, because I want to give a practical and I want to give a pie in the sky thing. The practical thing, get your math skills up. That's something we need to get our math skills up. I saw an alarming statistics. It's disturbing with the math. We need to get the math up. If you need help with that, get some resources to help with that. I may help you with that, but get the math skills up. That's number 1 in STEM overall. You get your math, because I was a math minor when I graduated from Lincoln University. If you get your math up, and the world of STEM is so easy to understand if you get your math up. That's number one. Number two is the pie in the sky, which is stay curious. So one thing I've noticed that this generation, my generation and another generation constantly do is they identify themselves in the field that they're in. There's nothing wrong with it, but I try not to put myself in a box. Please don't put yourself in the box. Just because you are a cancer biologist, or you're a biologist, or you might be a marine biologist, or you're a chemist, you're a biochemist, you're a physical chemist. I'm a physical chemist by training, or you're a mechanical engineer. Don't just say, I do this. Please stay curious, because what's happening in the world, everything is doing this. Everything is overlapping. I don't care what you say. Like I was telling you off screen, hydrogen, you see that energy, I would deal with that. But you're a biologist, right? Yeah. You know it's in healthcare.
Yeah.
Really? So always stay curious. Do not lock yourself in a major, in a focus, and say, I am this. Like my tagline I carry to this day. I'm an expert in chemistry, but I'm a student in life. And I live by that, because I'm telling you, I'm an expert in this. You ask me anything about this, I know my stuff. But you switch over to here, I'm open to learn about your world and what we can connect on, and see how that chemistry can bridge over to that lane, because that's the curiosity. So I'm not saying think like me. What I'm saying is just stay curious and don't just lock yourself in to that major, because as you've seen, jobs are going away, unfortunately. Let's just keep it real. If you don't stay curious, you're going to see over time what happens if you don't stay curious. And I'm going to just say that.
Dr. Jalaal Hayes, man, we really appreciate you coming in. Next time, man, we're going to find time to talk about the acronym about being great. I want to talk a little bit about that too. All kinds of stuff we can get into, man. But thank you so much for giving us your time. Kudos to everything you're doing with the energy company, with the students that you're working with. Man, thank you for being a pioneer, man, and just being an example of what we all can do if we just let our imagination run wild and then not be afraid. I mean, there's going to be a lot of youngsters out there that are going to have to make grown-up decisions, leave home, go to school early, go do some things before they may feel like they're ready to do it, man. But thank you for being a pioneer in that space. To our audience, man, we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you so much. Take care till we see you again on Equity and Energy.
Thank you.